Do you prefer them like this?
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be live for my first time live on YouTube. So we're going to see how this goes, see if this is better than Facebook. I do like the camera angle a little better. So we're going to see how this goes. All right, the timer is starting. It's 2 o'clock, and we are going to see if we can get all of these meals prepped in an hour. So if you are on my email list, you got the freezer meal guide prep list. So we're going to just start at the beginning and work our way down. Actually, no, we're going to start with the beef stroganoff because it's right here. I'm going to start off by labeling my bags. So when I make freezer meals, these are so easy. These are jump and go. I used to love looking up freezer meal recipes. But the problem was when you would start looking, all of a sudden, these freezer meal recipes were going to take me 8 hours to prep because I had to brown 20 pounds of ground beef and pre-cook and shred my chicken. And while it was helpful, sometimes I just don't have the bandwidth to have hours to spend in the kitchen on the weekend. I have things we need to do, busy kids, busy life, and sometimes I don't want to spend the hours in the kitchen. So these are really dump and go, super, super simple, easy freezer meals. So I've got my 2 bags ready to go with my beef stroganoff. These are just Ziploc bags. You can use reusable ones. There's many ways that you can do this. If you wanted to keep them longer, you can use like a vacuum seal them. Personally, I find the Ziploc bags are good because I prefer to eat them fairly quickly. I'm going to just tilt y'all, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite packs when I'm making freezer meals in a big batch like this. Sorry, that was loud. This is my sheet pan, and what I'm going to do is as I make these, they're going to lay flat on my sheet pan. And then I'm going to slip my sheet pan directly in the freezer, and that kind of helps everything freeze flat and freeze together like that. So for this one, I'm going to start off with my Black Angus. I had my receipt. I think it's gone. The ingredients for this recipe, I went out last night and did this entire shop for all of ingredients for today. It was $99.23 at my local Aldi. Now, if you have access to perhaps venison stew meat or something else, if you have access to Sam's or Costco, all of those are going to slightly, you can even save more. But as it is, 8 family-size meals for $12.50 per meal. I mean, we can't even go to Little Caesars $5 pizzas for that. So having this ready to go in my freezer is going to save me time and it's going to save me money. So I am just super excited to get started. So the biggest expense was obviously the protein. And these are all very heavy in protein. I even bought a little bit extra in some cases simply because that's just how it was sold and my family will eat it. So I'm going to put an entire pack in each of these and then leave let me grab another knife. So I've got a pack. So each of these are about 1 1/4 pounds, and we're going to aim for about 2 pounds of protein per meal. So I'm going to just start with this, my pound each, and then I'm going to pop in my other pack. It's going to be my dirty meat knife. So you're going to use about a pack and a half. Now, like I said, if I had gone to Sam's, I would have just bought 1 package of their stew meat, and it would have been enough for both bags. But I think Aldi just sells them slightly in smaller quantities, so it's a little bit more expensive. Now, wash your hands. I'm very vigilant about cross-contamination and making sure that We've got everything clean and ready to go. And I really want this to be a realistic look. I don't want this to be, I mean, it maybe took me 3 minutes to set everything up. So I really do want this to just be a realistic look at how long this kind of thing can take. Now we're going to do mushrooms. So I've got my colander already sitting in my sink. And I'm going to just toss my mushrooms in. I don't know if any of you have ever watched Alton Brown. I used to love cooking shows. I still do. But they just don't make them like they used to. And I used to watch Alton Brown. He did an entire experiment on mushrooms. There's an entire school of thought that says you should not wash mushrooms because they will hold on to the water. And he was trying to debunk that. And he did. He practiced, he weighed them, and practiced all the different types of cleaning that were suggested to him. A lot of restaurants apparently dry brush their mushrooms just to get all the dirt off, which I thought was kind of gross. So I just give mine, and he soaked them. He did a couple of different methods, and really the end result was that there wasn't a whole lot that you can do that will alter the density or the water retention of your mushrooms. Things that go a little bit funky. These are all baby bellas. Like I said, I got all of these groceries at Aldi. The only things that I did not buy are listed in the shopping list under the oils, condiments, spices, that kind of stuff, because I already had those. And full disclosure, I did not actually buy onions because I had so many onions. So I did not buy onions. But I did take a picture, and they were $1.66. So it's still right at that $100 mark. And I added in a bag of brown basmati rice. That tends to be my family's favorite. And I really want to show you guys, give you guys some options on ways to do this in a fuel pull way, or an E, or an S, all the different ways. I want you to have options, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Because our families and our husbands and our kids all have different nutritional needs. And what our goal is, right, is not to be living in the kitchen. I enjoy cooking to an extent, but I still don't want to be living in my kitchen. So I prefer to, my goodness, look at all these mushrooms. That one's got funky bottom. So I prefer to have things that are easy to go and things that I can easily adjust and not make an entire new meal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly chop these up. Remember, these are going to be cooking in your crock pot all day long, so they don't have to be super small. So I've got big old, I don't know, that's probably 1/2 inch chunks. And I'm just going to kind of go through. I always cut off the woody bottom part. That's just my preference. And then probably about 4 slices. So you just take a minute and slice these up. And this is the kind of stuff too. If you have kids that want to help, you can allow them to, do this kind of simple chopping, or even measuring when we get there. But there is very little measuring. I don't like to pull out a dozen measuring spoons and have an overwhelming amount of stuff, in my way while I'm cooking and prepping. So I do try and keep things as simple as possible. Let's see. Got all of these mushrooms. And so while we're here, I'd love to chat with you guys a little bit. I don't think I have anybody live. If there are any questions, I do have access to the chat right now. So you're welcome to put them in the chat. Or you're always welcome to email me. My email address is pretty accessible, and I can help you out in any way that I can. I would love to be of assistance. But let's just talk a little bit about my THM journey. So I came from a life of someone who had always struggled with my weight. I always felt like I didn't fit in. I always felt like my weight was never where I wanted it to be, even as a child. But then, especially once I became older, I got married young, and it just kind of snowballed from there. There we go. I was really good at really strict, over the top diets. But the problem with those was that they didn't give me the foundation that I needed to actually learn how to live that way. So I had a ton of success on diets that were, 600 calories a day, because they were so strict. There was no room for thinking, right? There was no room for interpretation. Conversely, I had very little success with things that were more free, things like Weight Watchers, calorie counting, because man, I could sit there for hours and mess with that calorie counting app, and I could get that Snickers bar to fit in my calories. And really, it was a struggle for me, because sitting there and thinking, okay, well, I'm spending hours on these calorie counting apps trying to get my calories right, and I'm not seeing the results that I want. Where do I go from here? And so my epiphany came. I was on a homeschool message board called the Well-Trained Mind message boards. I don't know if any of you remember those. They're probably still around. And someone mentioned Shrimp Like Mama, and I thought, I'm looking into that. At that point, I was pregnant and knew that I was going to be nursing. And so I knew that I needed something that I could use to help me feel my best while I was in that phase of life and needed those extra nutrition without, all of the calorie counting and the Weight Watchers and all of that. You can't do any of that while you're pregnant and nursing. So when I found this, I thought, well, maybe this will work for a season, right? I thought this will just be my season. And then I'm going to go back to the extremes, because that's where I was happy. That's where I felt like I was in control, because I was so extreme. And what I found when I was on Shrimp Like Mama, even pregnant and nursing, was that I felt so much better. Even though I'm pregnant, my goal is not weight loss, right? I felt fed. I felt full. I felt like I knew what to do. And that feeling of success was kind of intoxicating. So when after, the baby was born, he had his year and a half of nursing, then I was like, I'm going to just keep on. And I kept on. And, with different levels of severity is not what I want to say, compliance. I was more compliant in some seasons and less than others, but it was always there in the back of my head, right? That I felt so great on this, and I'm going to go back to it. And so in 2019, I was in a super chaotic, busy season, but I was also feeling my worst. I was tired. I wasn't able to keep up with my kids. And at that point, my husband was gone for work for almost 10 months. And it was just me and the kids. And so I was the only one. I had to have the energy. I had to be able to keep up with them. And so that is what really led me to think, okay, I need to get to do something that I can do for me, but not just for me. Like, I really need to be there for them. And so I started really, adhering strictly to the THM plan in like spring, summer of 2019. And then by January of 2020, I had lost over 60 pounds, and I was feeling great. I had tons of energy. I was walking at least 3 miles a day just because I wanted to, not even for the weight loss. It was because I felt good. That's how I was able to get my energy out. And so I continued on to that, and my husband got home, and, we had, it was wonderful. He loved, the energy and the vibrance, and, I've still kind of carried that on. And now I still have all of the tools at my disposal. And that's why I became a coach, because I saw so many women, especially in 2020, feeling like I don't know what to do. I am overwhelmed. This book is this thick, because at that point, like, they only had the big honking book, the first one, with lots of chattiness and dialogue. Now, I could speed read through that. I think I read it in a weekend the first time I read it. But people were overwhelmed. I mean, and rightly so. It was not easy to reference. And since then, the new books are much much more conducive. But I wanted to help women that needed a little bit more and that weren't sure what to do and didn't feel like they could ever understand THM and implement it into their lives. Oh, I tried that, but now I'm busy and I can't. Or my kids wouldn't eat it. Or, I had to make different meals. And I wanted to show women that you don't have to make separate meals. You can just make one meal and tweak it to each person's own needs. So this is what I'm doing here. I've just put in my beef and my mushrooms. I'm going to add in my onion. Like I said, I did not put onions in my list because I just had so many. We use a lot of onions, so it's something that I always have tons of on hand. Let's get these chopped up. I don't know, did anybody ever watch Rachel Ray when you were, back when Food Network was the big thing? I used to love her show. She always had a trash bowl. I don't quite go with the trash bowl, but I do try to have one, streamlined place to keep all of my trash. Again, when you're chopping this onion, remember that you're going to be cooking this all day. So if the chunks are a little bit bigger, it's going to cook down. And all of these meals, like I said, are things that you can kind of just put in and go. I do prefer, personally, to bake the pork tenderloin and the lemon garlic chicken instead of doing them in the crock pot. I've never really liked pork tenderloin or chicken breast in the crock pot. I just feel like it doesn't have enough fat to really keep the meat moist through the entire cooking time. So I don't usually do them in there. But in that case, you just take it out the night before and let it sit in the your fridge overnight. And then in the morning, it's ready to go right into a pan and into the oven. So one reason that I added that basmati rice to my shop yesterday, which is right here, it's not because I'm actually going to put it in any of the recipes, but it's because we are going to simply have that as an option for family members that might need a crossover. So if you have family members that need a little bit more, this recipe right here is considered an S, or a satisfying recipe, because it's higher in fat. It's got a lot of fat in the beef stew meat, and actually that's it, unless you use the cream cheese. So you want to just, but if you have family members, I would actually prefer to serve this over potatoes. I think this would be delicious over potatoes. So you do that. You need some garlic. Let me get my little spoon out here. It says a couple cloves. Oh, shoot. There we go. Put on there good. So you put some garlic in, and you can do fresh garlic. To me, that's one of the things that's just never quite been worth the trade-off time-wise. This recipe right here is definitely the most time-intensive. So it's all downhill from here. We're going to take this. We're going to add beef broth. One of the best things that I've ever taught myself is the equivalencies, conversions, the different conversion charts. So here I'm in the store and I need 2 cups of bone broth. So I'm like, oh shoot, how much is that? Well, all I need is this one little thing, because it's leaking everywhere. This is 17 ounces. But if you know that there's 8 ounces in a cup, this is barely over 2 cups. And so you just divide it evenly. Dijon mustard. I actually didn't buy Dijon mustard, which is an ingredient that normally I probably would have had to buy. However, I happened to have purchased this recently, and I can't even remember why. But I was So this is not on the list either, but everything else was purchased for $100, which in this day and age for $12.50 a meal, not too shabby. Now all we need is some salt and pepper. And I'm going to give you a little bit of advice when it comes to this recipe. And there's one other. This recipe, I actually prefer Greek yogurt. It gives you the option of Greek yogurt or fat-free, or the 1/3 less fat cream cheese. I prefer the Greek yogurt in this. I find it a little bit creamier, but you're going to want to, that does not freeze well. And you want to add it at the end. So it's not going to go in the bag. What I do, not for this recipe, but for one of the other recipes coming up where we're going to use cream cheese, is the cream cheese freezes and then you just have to remember to set it out kind of, in the fridge or whatever when you put your meal in, because the texture isn't going to come back. The texture is going to be weird. So it's not going to be good for like most cream cheese things from now on, but it is still really good for cooking. So you're not going to notice the change in texture when you put it in the crock pot. So here we go. 2 meals down. Beef stroganoff times 2. So this is going to be an S meal. If you add rice, potatoes, anything like that, you're going to make it a crossover. This one does not have quite as much flexibility as some of the ones we're going to do next. So I'm going to put these on my baking tray, and that way they're all ready to freeze flat in the freezer, and it's kind of, in my opinion, the best way to have things ready to go. So what's up next? Let's do some, we'll do pork and then we'll come back. No, let's do pork last. We're gonna do our pork last because my pork looks like it's gonna make a mess. So we're gonna do chicken next. We're gonna start with the creamy salsa chicken. This is the one that I was just saying needed, you're gonna need to put the cream cheese in the freezer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop these on top of this when I'm done so that I have it all together. And in that way, I know that I've got cream cheese with that, because cream cheese isn't something I have on hand as ubiquitously as I do Greek yogurt. So let's talk about the fuel types for this creamy salsa chicken. This is one that you can actually do as a fuel pull or as an e-meal or as an S meal. So what I am going to suggest is you keep what you put in these bags super, super simple. I want you to not put a whole lot of fuel in these bags, because by doing that, you're going to broaden your options. So if you have this as a fuel pull in the bag, then when you get to your, you're cooking it and you're like, oh man, I really need to eat dinner. Well, make some rice and you're golden. Or, oh man, I really want to have a S meal for dinner. Then you're golden. You can just swap it around however you need to, which is my favorite thing. This has 5. So I'm just going to use my chicken knife and cut in between these 2 right here. So we're going to add our chicken. I hate raw chicken. That's okay. 1, 2.5. Oh, didn't quite cut. 1, 2, and then I'm going to, let's see, put half and half. It's just that easy. It does not need to be any more complicated than that. So I've got all of my chicken ready to go. Wash my hands. I go through a lot of soap. But hopefully that gives you confidence if you're ever invited over that all of the hygiene is well handled. Lots of soap. All right, now literally this could not be any simpler. And so what I'm going to do, so I did have to check. All things was a little bit tricky. I had to check several different salsa options because a lot of them had added sugar. There was one restaurant style salsa that was shelf stable that did not have added sugar. And I had that in my cart until I saw this. This is the mild fresh cut salsa. And I just thought it would be a little bit more tasty. So I've got the mild fresh cut salsa, but you have to check. And one thing that you're going to notice is that these are going to always have a little bit of sugar in them. There's always some carbs. There's always some sugar. It's the added sugar that you really want to avoid. Tomatoes naturally have some carbs and some sugars in them. So you just want to avoid those added sugars. And you can best do that by checking the ingredients, because if they do add extra sugar, they have to list it. So as long as cane sugar is not a listed ingredient, you're fine. So I've got my chicken breast and I've got my salsa. Now I'm going to do a little bit of cumin and a little bit of chili powder just to kind of take it up a notch. Cumin and, oh, there's my chili powder. So I am an eyeballer. That's going to be about 2 teaspoons. There we go. I guess for a lot of cumin, I actually discovered it, or rediscovered it, I guess, in a recipe for crock pot beans and crock pot refried beans. And it's one of our family's favorites. We eat it on Fridays a lot. But it calls for cumin, and that really just makes that recipe so much better. That's about a tablespoon of chili powder. All right, done. So now, again, I'm just going to bag this up. I don't add a whole lot of extra seasoning because usually the salsa does have so much flavor, especially using a fresh one like that. So I'm just going to add that frozen flat on top. And then when I go ahead and put these in the freezer, I'm going to add in those 2 bricks of cream cheese. My family really likes this as a creamy meal. When you eat this, you can eat it over rice if you want a crossover. I have all of this listed in the descriptions. So if you look at the download, then you can see all of the descriptions, exactly what you can do, different options. You can eat it as a fuel pull with just some veggies and, maybe some fresh lime and extra salsa. If you don't use the cream cheese, you can do it as an S with cream cheese and sour cream and cheese, or you can even do it as a crossover with rice, beans, and then the creamy cream cheese and the sour cream or avocado. The sky's the limit. There's so many different things you can do. Next, we're going to move on to the lemon garlic chicken with green beans. There's a couple ways you can do this. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it, and then we will chat about options. Lemon garlic chicken. Lemon garlic chicken. This could not be easier. This one is one, though, that I do prefer to bake instead of put in the crock pot. Try that chicken breast in the crock pot. And something like a salsa chicken where there's a lot of other liquid, a lot of flavors, and we're likely going to make it creamy. I find it is okay. But when it comes to something like this, I really prefer it not in the crock pot. So I'm going to open up, let me use the knife. I'm gonna open this. Look at this. We have made 4 meals and we are in 30 minutes. 30 minutes in. I thought it was going to take about an hour. So I've got these. I'm going to actually cut the biggest one. Oh, y'all can't really see me. I'm going to cut the biggest one in half. And you can even do more cutting if you like them thinner. These are actually really thick. I don't usually buy chicken from Aldi, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. But this is their free range. I'm not sure. I don't think it's organic, but free range happy chickens. This is just what my store had. It was pretty late at night when I went shopping, and so my selection was not the best. I also live pretty rurally, so our Aldi is also kind of small.
Yeah.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm logging in, I forgot. Thank you.
6. There we go. Put that in there. Now, oops. Wash your hands. So much hand washing. If you don't wash your hands, I feel like you could do this in half the time. Not really. Actually, the mushroom slicing is what took the longest. If I had bought 3 sliced mushrooms, it would have been much quicker. But that's okay. Sometimes they're worth the splurge, but the ones last night at the store did not look good. So a lot of times they're the same price. You just have to look at the ounces. So I've got my lemon garlic chicken here ready to go. What I'm going to do is I was going to, I'm just going to use bottled lemon juice. This is my favorite, this real lemon. Although I don't know if any of y'all had grandmothers. My grandmother loved this frozen Minute Maid lemon juice. It came in a little yellow bottle, and I can only find it at like 2 grocery stores now. But it's about 4 tablespoons. It's very thick. It's more viscous, I think. It's probably fresher than this one, but that's okay. And so you're gonna add some lemon juice and then quite a bit of minced garlic. This is 4 cloves. We're gonna use our garlic here. Let's call that 2, 3, 4. I love garlic, so if you don't, you might want to pull back. I can go a little overkill sometimes. I have been known. My family will tell me. A little garlic, and then salt, pepper, parsley, and Italian seasoning. So again, these recipes are so simple. I don't love pepper. Full disclosure, I don't even put pepper on my eggs. Not my favorite spice. But I will use a little bit. I don't know why. I probably shouldn't if I don't like it. And then I've got, where's my salt? Oh, there it is. Salt. I need about a teaspoon per bag. So once you measure it out a whole bunch of times, you can kind of pour it into your hand and see what it looks like. And then you can get a really good idea of how much a teaspoon is versus a tablespoon, etc. Trying to get my spices back here so y'all can see what I'm doing. Got some parsley. I'm gonna do parsley is one of those. It looks pretty and it doesn't really taste like much. So probably 2 tablespoons. It's a little more than the recipe calls for, but that's okay. And then Italian seasoning. Again, Aldi. Like I got this at Aldi. It's not fancy. I didn't buy it last night, but it's one that I've had for a while. Again, about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. Small palmful, and you call it good. So that's it. So this recipe calls for frozen green beans. What I like to do in this case, excuse me, for this particular recipe, what I like to do is to purchase the green beans. So I have 4 bags of frozen green beans, but not put them in here quite yet. Because when I bake this, I'm probably going to pull it out and let it sit. And then I'm going to let it kind of sit and marinate in the fridge till it's thawed. And then I'm going to bake it. This is just one that I prefer to bake. I like the way it turns out. I like the texture better. So you can do it in the crock pot. You can cook all 4 of these in the crock pot if you want, but I just prefer to bake this one. So what I'm gonna do is when I bake it, put a bed of frozen green beans down on top, and then put my chicken on top of the green beans, and then the green beans kind of also get infused with that, excuse me, with that awesome lemon garlic flavor. That's some water. I think I inhaled some of the Italian seasoning. Excuse me. All right, last but not least. Y'all, we are cooking with gas. It is 2:36, and we have got 2 meals to go. So now we have this tangy Dijon pork tenderloin. I don't like mustard, but I do think that it works well here. Pork is kind of the pork and corned beef. Those are my 2 exceptions to my I don't like mustard rule. I find that it works really well with both of those. So what I'm going to do here, sorry, I should have pre-labeled my bags. Let's see. Is I'm going to put my pork tenderloins in, and then I'm going to mix up my marinade and then just kind of divide it between the 2. So I'm not sure if you ever bought pork tenderloin. It's different than pork loin. It is incredibly lean. There's not much fat here at all. So this meat can be used in fuel pull, in e-meals, and in S-meals. This is another really good, diverse option that you can use in all of those different settings. Actually, I can do this. They come vacuum sealed like this, and I usually buy them at Costco or Sam's, where they have it's 2 packs like this in a package, and so it's 4 pork tenderloins total. So these are each have 2 in them. These are each a little bit over 2 pounds. Like I said, I tried to aim for about 2 pounds of protein per meal. For my family of 6, this will get us a solid dinner and then a few servings of leftovers. It would not feed us for 2 meals because there are so many of us, but it would give us enough for a couple extra servings. My husband always takes leftovers to work. I like to have leftovers at home. So those are kind of what I was aiming for. Those are the numbers that I was aiming for. So they're just 2 small little pork tenderloins. Again, this is the other recipe, just like the lemon garlic chicken, that I prefer to bake. You don't have to. You can do it in the crock pot, but there's not much fat on these pork tenderloins, and so they dry out so fast, which is why I just prefer to bake them. I will leave it in my refrigerator all day, and it will defrost. I try and do it the night before so that it has a little bit more time, but we do what we can. And I will, here we go. Perfect. I will then just put it in the oven, and they take about 35 to 40 minutes in my oven. Now my oven cooks a little bit hotter than my old oven used to, so just kind of have to test it and see. I know with the THM recipes, I love the THM recipes, but I don't know how their ovens cook. They must be nuclear powered because mine always takes twice as long when I'm cooking. If you notice, I did fold down the tops of the bag so that when my hands are full of raw meat, I can kind of grab it and I'm just touching the inside of the bag. It's one of those freezer meal prep hacks. I've seen the cool little stands that you can get, but I've not gotten that fancy yet. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to whip up a marinade, and then we will just divide it between the 2 and it'll be good to go. I did not have all of my equipment out like I should have. So we're going to start with a 1/4 cup So I'm doubling this. So the recipes are written just for one batch. So I'm doubling them. So we're going to want half a cup of Dijon mustard. Stuff does not come out very easily. One more squirt. There we go. And then we're going to do a 1/4 cup, which is 4 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. So again, that's just where these quick conversions come in. There are 4 tablespoons in a cup, and there are 4 tablespoons in a 1/4 cup. There are 16 in a 1/4 cup. So just knowing those things kind of can make it a little bit easier to rotate things around in your head. Another favorite kitchen tip of mine is I love having a measuring utensil in my containers. So this is my Gentle Sweet. And this is what they used to send out as a collagen scoop. It is a 1.5 tablespoons. Give it about exactly 2 tablespoons of Gentle Sweet in there. So 2 tablespoons of Gentle Sweet, and then 2 tablespoons of olive oil. 1, 2. This is a little bit of added fat, but it's not that much. And when you divide it out over all of the servings, it is not enough to make this an S meal. It is definitely still an E or fuel territory. We're going to use garlic powder and salt and pepper. Garlic powder, right here. Garlic powder and salt. Oops. Salt. And I'm going to skip the pepper actually because I don't like mustard very much. I don't know that I can put pepper in it too. It might just be a little bit too much for me. Sorry, I thought I saw a comment. So what am I going to do now? Add a sliced onion. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to whisk this up. And it's just this mustardy, slightly sweet, kind of going for a honey mustard thing, but I didn't really want to add the actual honey in there because it's just a little higher in glycemic load. You could add actual honey if you wanted instead of the Gentle Sweet. You could do any kind of sweetener that you prefer. And pour about half in this one, and then half in this one. And there we go. So I actually have very few dishes. What's going to take me the longest to clean up is just putting everything away. Sliced onion. That was something I was going to add. So it does say optional. I'm going to go ahead and put a sliced onion in here. Again, because I just think it tastes so good when you bake it. Just to have those onion slices. That's just my garlic spoon. Let's see. So I'm going to do probably half of a sliced onion in each bag. And then you can just dump it in there. Dump it in your baking pan and you will be ready to go. Let's see. I've got there we go. Oh, maybe not. Onions can be so tricky to peel sometimes. Sometimes they're so easy and sometimes they're just not working with you. All right. Dump that. Oops. And look, it's only 2:44. We've got plenty of time. So one quick sliced onion. And do the same thing here. There we go. So about half of an onion in each bag. Oh no, I took that one up. There we go. Whew. Almost made it. Missed the last few little pieces. There we go. Tangy pork tenderloin. And we're done. 2:45. 45 minutes on the nose. So again, you could do things that would take longer. You know, if you were to chop your own garlic, that would take longer. Or you could do things that would make it faster, like buying the pre-sliced mushrooms that you just have to wash. There's just all kinds of different ways, but I would say including the time it took me to put everything out, and the time that it will take me to put everything away, I'm right at an hour. So if you could spend an hour on a Sunday and get all of your meals prepped for, you know, having 2 meals ready to go, no thought needed for the next, 4 weeks. So 2 meals a week for 4 weeks. I just feel like it's such a gift that you can give your family for $100, and you will be set. So I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to serving you however I can. Have a great day.